Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Post Position Podcast, a Painted Lines podcast. I'm your first host, Harrison Grimm here. You can find me on Twitter at Harrison E. Grimm. That's Grimm with two M's. And with me is my co-host, Jack Connell. Jack, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Ready to get going. I'm excited. It's a new era.
Yes, it is. I'm excited to be doing a podcast about just general NBA topics because a lot of my work has revolved around the Sixers in Philadelphia. But this season especially, it seems like there's a lot of great topics out there, a lot of great storylines to cover. So we decided to start up this, and I can't be more excited about it. So for this episode today, we have shocking storylines as our main topic. And let's start off. Let's start off on a depressing note. Let's talk about some of the more disappointing teams thus far into the NBA season. Jack, why don't you give me one of yours?
I think the most obvious one to start off with is the Golden State Warriors. It's the fall of a dynasty. I mean, Steph Curry is broken in hand. He's out till at least the All-Star break. Draymond Green now has something. Klay Thompson's a torn ACL. They're running what looked like a prime process Sixers lineup last night. Eric Pascal leading the group. It's just a really ugly way to see a team fall like that. I mean, D'Angelo Russell. I mean, we thought they might be able to lead themselves back to a possible championship appearance this year, but they really have struggled a lot this year, and it's kind of starting to show that losing Kevin Durant, losing Klay Thompson, they aren't the same team anymore, and the NBA is completely blown wide open.
Yeah, that's definitely probably the first team that comes to mind for me too. And it's one of those situations where like you always go into a season and like in your head you're like, man, that team's gonna be really good, or like, man, that team's gonna be really bad. And that was one of those teams where it didn't really strike me until like now when I think their record's 1-4 if I'm not mistaken. Where like
Somewhere around
yeah,
there.
you look at that team and like yeah, you still have Steph Curry who's arguably the best point guard in the league. They still have Klay Thompson, although he's going to be out the entire year. You have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Draymond Green, and you're also adding an All-Star in D'Angelo Russell. But I think what happened was a lot of people saw all those major pieces, and they didn't really look at the rest of the roster. And the best way to put the rest of the roster is it's thrown together at best.
They tried to get names. I think is what they. It felt like kind of like a Lakers appearance. They got Willie Cauley Stein. They got guys they thought would work, and got young guys they thought they could develop, and they didn't have anybody that was a solid piece that could contribute, and it's just very falling apart. Their bench is terrible to say the least.
It's honestly a G League bench outside of they have two solid pieces. Willie Cauley Stein put together a good campaign last year. Kevon Looney, really tough, good role player. But outside of that, you're basically running a G League team. I mean, Fantasy Labs always puts out like the starting fives before each game, and they even said like the Santa Cruz Warriors are starting tonight because that's really what that lineup is outside of that. And a lot of that has to do with just how the salary cap works. They gave D'Angelo Russell a max deal, and they can't really spend much money outside of that. And the Warriors now find themselves in a tough spot. Like where do they go from here? Do you trade away D'Angelo Russell and try and build cap space to actually put a bench together? I think that's the way I would go. But I'm sure that's a question that Bob Myers and the rest of the Warrior staff are asking themselves right now.
I mean, and the thing is, this is a core three that has shown when healthy. They are very, very good. I mean, obviously they aren't the same group they had around them in that 2016 campaign. I mean, those three stars. I mean, they're the centerfold. I mean, if you can, I think. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, Russell really can't be moved till December 15th, I believe, because of his contract extension. What they would do exactly? I mean, of seeing a new team getting built around this Warriors. I mean, they also aren't getting any younger. I mean, you gotta think these guys are all is Clay's approaching 30, I believe. Steph and Draymond are both in their 30s, but Draymond just got a brand new extension. I mean, they're very locked up money wise. So I mean, even if they move Russell's contract, they're going to be very tight for cap space. So I don't really know what they're going to be able to build around that, regardless.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that is going to eventually come because I think ultimately what's going to end up happening is they're just going to end up shutting down Steph and Draymond, and whether it's for an official reason or official injury or or not. I think that it's ultimately just going to come to that, and they're ultimately just going to tank and try and get a top 3 pick. And who knows? Maybe like a lot of people compare this situation to the Spurs back in '98, I believe it was, when they had David Robinson and a bunch of win now pieces, but everyone was just not healthy. They ultimately won the lottery, and then they got Tim Duncan, and the rest is history. So maybe that I think that's what they're banking on, a situation like that to happen, and I think that's the best thing to happen for them. Um, I think you gotta move D'Angelo Russell. I don't see a situation where you keep him long term. I just think the fit's awkward. I mean, here's the thing: Klay Thompson is gonna ultimately come back, and he's gonna still be a good player. Um, a torn ACL is a serious injury. I think his defense will fall off because of that. But he's ultimately an elite shooter, and elite shooters last in this league. Um, and I think they're just going to end up moving D'Angelo Russell for, let's say, an expiring deal and maybe 2 draft picks, because D'Angelo Russell has a ton of value in the NBA. And a team like the Orlando Magic, per se, would definitely be interested in acquiring someone like him.
I think the teams that I mean, Minnesota was a team that a lot of people had interest in. The Phoenix Suns, especially if their rise this year, is another interesting team to put him on. Another I think might even be is maybe the Miami Heat. I mean, that might be a little bit contradictory with Butler and Russell both being trying to be primary ball handlers, but I mean, those are 3 teams that are on the up and up that have the young assets to move that Golden State would be interested in. I mean, Russell isn't an old piece. I mean, he's what, 24, 25? He's a very young
Mm-hmm.
player. He's still got a lot of career left in him.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see how that situation plays out. It's going to end up being one of the more underrated storylines, I feel like, with this season. Another team that I had on my list in terms of most disappointing teams was actually the New Orleans Pelicans. And I know that there's hesitation with me saying that, but the Pelicans, there's without a doubt that they were trying to be competitive this season. You don't add JJ Redick, Derek Favors, and other veterans if you're trying to tank. And I get Zion's hurt, and that's really unfortunate. He's still going to be out for a good amount of time. But this roster is just not good, and maybe it's on Alvin Gentry putting together poor rotations. Like I watched, especially the season opener where they faced off against the Raptors, and I believe there was like a 12 plus minute period where Gentry had Lonzo Ball and JJ Redick on the bench. And like that is just such a long time to keep a player off the floor and then expect them to come back and hit shots. And maybe there's fault with that, but ultimately I'm just disappointed with this roster. They're 1-5 right now. I just checked the standing. And I'm not saying that they should have a positive record, especially out west, but I feel like they're better than 1-5.
Yeah, I mean, the Pelicans, that was another team I had here on my most disappointed list. I mean, also, I mean, you got, like you said, Zion's injured, and Drew Holiday missed a little bit of time. Again, it's very disappointing to see. I mean, like you said, they are a win now team. Derek Favors, he looked pretty good for that opening night. I mean, this team, I mean, Gentry's a good coach. I mean, he's done very well. He's proven he can do a lot with a little in the past. The Pelicans in the playoffs a little bit back with Rondo and AD. I think they can. I hope they can put it together. I mean, Zion, I'm hoping he can be game changer. I don't know how much he will be his rookie year. I mean, we keep denying how good he's going to be off the impact, but he keeps showing to be pretty good in the preseason, summer league. But I mean, the NBA regular season is a whole different ball game. Again, the other piece they have, Lonzo's looked okay. Brandon Ingram, I mean, they leave a little bit to be desired. JJ Redick, again, I mean, these are all guys that they have the ability to, and I have a feeling they can flip the switch here coming on later in the year, but right now they really are just looking a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, but the question arises then, like, how long can you go with not performing well and just turning it on in the Western Conference? Because this is one of the most competitive Western Conferences we've seen in a while. The Mavs look like an improved team. The Phoenix Suns are somehow good this year. Like, there's a lot of teams on the rise, and the room for error is getting smaller.
Mm-hmm. One other team I wanted to throw into the mix here for disappointing, I mean, it also comes with an asterisk, is the Sacramento Kings. I mean, the Kings I talked about
Yeah,
earlier into the year, they were a team I thought was going to be a shocker to other people in this league this year. I thought De'Aaron Fox, Marvin Bagley, this was going to be a group that has developed quite well in the offseason going here. Obviously, Marvin Bagley got hurt right off the bat. He's missing a lot of time. Maybe that might be a reason why, as to why they're not performing as well. But I mean, I love De'Aaron Fox. I think he's going to be great in this league. Interesting to see why they declined Harry Giles' option and Caleb Swanigan going in the upcoming season. I feel like Giles is a good young prospect, and that's interesting why they denied his team option. Again, I mean, they look like they have some pieces that want out. Bogdanovich is one to leave. I mean, I really feel like they can maybe when Bagley gets back later in the year, they can flip this again. But right now, like I said, kind of like with New Orleans, they were just disappointing right away.
I'm really glad you brought up this team because I'm just frustrated with this team, and it's so sad because last season you saw a flash of potential. De'Aaron Fox put together an incredible sophomore season. He took a big leap. Really, no one expected him to take in only his second year. Buddy Hield as well, phenomenal player. Um, the Kings just frustrate me because they have a lot of pieces that I like. I love De'Aaron Fox. I love Buddy Hield as players. I think Marvin Bagley, while he's not Luka Doncic or even Trae Young, I think he's still a good, really good starter in today's NBA. There's a lot to like about this team, and they added good bench pieces with Trevor Ariza, Corey Joseph, even Dwayne Dedman is a good add. And it's just frustrating to me that it seems like the Kings just can't get it right with one thing. And that one thing I really feel like is Luke Walton. I don't think he's a good coach in the NBA. Um, really, he built his stock when he was being an intern coach for the Warriors when Steve Kerr was out, I believe, with a bad back. And the
Mm-hmm.
Warriors went undefeated that time, and that's when, heads turned like, wow, maybe this Luke Walton guy can coach. Really didn't do anything with the Lakers. Obviously, he was a main reason why the Lakers missed the playoffs. You can also blame it on injuries, LeBron, whatever else, but ultimately it does come down to him. And then the Kings fire a great head coach in Dave Yeager.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of that ad, and they fired him just basically because of a front office feud, or I forget the specific details. I know it was a front office feud.
What I agree between the tea leaves is it looks like they kind of gave up on a guy that was very good X's and O's. Kind of he could get teams through wins. This is what I've kind of seen through. And Luke Walton's a very good player coach. He is good with managing players, but his X and O stuff is nearly not as good as Jaeger's. I just think that was something that Vlade Divac thought mattered more to this team, and obviously it has hurt them a lot. And they're seeing that right away that they're missing that offensive coaching play style that he brought to the table last
It,
year.
it just drives me crazy that they're in this situation, and they have the pieces to win. Even in the West, I believe that coming into this season, and they still have time to turn it on, obviously. But I believe, like, man, they have a serious chance at getting a playoff spot, probably in the lower 8 or 7 area. But I really believe that they could compete, and now I'm not so sure, and that's not really due to a player's fault. I wouldn't even blame injuries. I really think a lot of this just goes on Luke Walton, and they're definitely disappointing in that aspect.
Yeah, it's been very sad to see so far. Again, maybe Bagley's return will change things going into later in the year. He's got about another couple weeks left until he's back.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's uplift the mood a little bit to this. I want to talk about most impressive teams thus far. Um, and I feel like I got to kick this off with the only undefeated team in the NBA, the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm really impressed with them because, I mean, while I am close to Philadelphia and while I am a homer at heart, I wasn't really sure about this team going into the season. Like, on paper, it looks good. Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Joel Embiid. Like, those are all really big name players. Those are all good players. But I just wasn't sure about the fit, specifically with Al Horford, Joel Embiid, and Tobias Harris just being on the court at the same time. I believe Tobias is a 4 at heart. I believe Al's more of a 5 than a 4. But thus far, for the most part, they've really proved me wrong in that area. The offense has looked clunky at times with them. Um, but I will say having Al Horford around on this team, especially for Joel had an ankle sprain already. Obviously, now he's serving a 2-game suspension. Having Al Horford around on this team with Ben Simmons is incredibly beneficial to this team. And it's actually really impressive. I didn't expect the impact to be felt that much, especially early on.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking, it feels like a fever dream. It still doesn't feel real to me after all those years. I mean, looking at NBA power rankings and seeing the Sixers being at 1 and 2, it's just I don't. It still hasn't even kicked in for me yet. This is a great team. I mean, the offense again is the interior game is okay, but I mean, their jump shot 3 pointers is left a lot to be desired. But I mean, their incredible defense is made up for a lot. Matisse Thybulle has surpassed all expectations so far, as thought to be a guy who was being 8, 9th man in the rotation, is shown to be a starter in situations where he's needed to be and has lived up to the hype. He has been great so far. All their bench
Yeah,
pieces. Oh, sorry.
no, you're good. He's really impressed me because he was someone that I had on my draft boards pretty high. I had someone like Cameron Johnson over him, but I just didn't think with Thibault um, that his impact would be felt to this extent that he's produced. That he's leading the league in steals right now. I believe it's 2.8 a game, and while that is impressive alone, he's doing it in limited time. And the defensive potential with him is off the charts, and it's really impressive. And credit to Elton Brand, and the scouting department for hitting on this pick. Thibault looks like he has incredible potential defensively. Offensively, I'm not really sure he's ever going to be a consistent threat, but obviously that's just not what you're signing up for with him. He's been very impressive. Even the Sixers bench has been more impressive in my eyes. James Ennis is coming on as of late. Mike Scott's been pretty solid. And they even showed flashes the other night with Raul Neto coming in for 6 minutes and helping them come back against Portland and winning a pretty intense game.
Yeah, another team I wanted to bring up after Philadelphia is one of Philadelphia's departures, and we're kind of seeing it beat down currently against the Houston Rockets. That's the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat have built, contrary popular belief, a very, very good team around Jimmy Butler. They are young and they are good. Tyler Hero is very good. He is probably the best shooter out of this draft, in my opinion. Absolutely dominating that space of the game. You have undrafted rookie Kendrick Nunn, who had the most points out of any undrafted rookie through 5 games in NBA history. Bam Adebayo, who's looking like a potentially very good young center. They have all these other pieces around them. Jimmy Butler leading the crew. They look like they could be a top 3 seed in the East right now.
Yeah, that was a team where going into the season, I was like, this is kind of a weird team because like you got a mix of young talent, you got some veterans on some not so team friendly deals, like James Johnson, for instance. Um, I thought it was going to be a weird team, but it's actually been a really competitive and fun team to watch if you ever watch them on TV. Right now, as I'm recording this, I actually have that game pulled up beside me. It's 71 39 Heat. So they've put together some really good performances, and there's a lot to like about this team. Eric Spoelstra is a great coach. Obviously, we've seen Jimmy Butler is a all-star. He's a great player. Tyler Hero might be Rookie of the Year. We'll get into that later in this episode. There's just a lot of pieces and a lot of things to like about this team, and I think that they are starting off a bit hot thus far. I think they are going to cool off a little bit, but I do think they're going to be in the upper tier in terms of Eastern Conference seeding.
The other team I wanted to bring up here is obviously it's a one-man show and was kind of predicted by our guy Brian Jacobs. I didn't even think top 5 MVP candidate. We'll get it later. Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. That team is legit. What are your thoughts on Atlanta, Harry?
It, it's hard putting together words because I've never been so wrong about a young prospect. Like, obviously, you're not going to hit on 100% of your takes, but I was 100% off with Trae Young. He's really good. I still want to see his shooting on a more consistent basis, but I think he will get to that point. He's a phenomenal passer. And the Hawks have just done such a good job surrounding the team with young talent. They've really rebuilt a lot in such a short time. I love Kevin Huerter. Cam Reddish, where they got him, was a good pick, even though I'm not sure how he's going to be long term as a player. But if he falls to you at, I believe it was 10, you got to take him. DeAndre Hunter is an interesting 3-and-D guy. That's what you got to put around Trae Young and Kevin Huerter. They've been a really fun team thus far. I do think they can sneak into the playoffs. I think they're probably going to be in the 8 to maybe 6 range in the seeding, especially because Trae Young's now out with injury, and they've dropped a few games. But that's an incredibly fun team to watch. And in the front,
I just want a lot of people are pointing comparisons to a young Golden State, possibly. Do you see that comparison at all? A young Golden State team?
yeah, I mean, I think you see that with like a high shooting backcourt with Kevin Huerter and Trae Young. Obviously, they're both really good shooters. The difference between those two, then between Golden State and the Atlanta Hawks, is you're not getting much defense out of that backcourt. Kevin Huerter is an average defender at best. He has good size, but he's not going to be someone locking up someone. And Trae Young is just so small that you're not getting defense out of him. That's not why he's on the court. And that's why adding guys like DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, and DeAndre Bembry, all wings that are capable of defending, are so important to this team. And that's ultimately what's going to make or break this team, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, no, I got to add one more team to this most impressive list. And that's the Phoenix Suns. Wow.
I don't know how they keep doing it.
With like, if you told me what's their standings right now, let me look.
I
They're
believe they're 5-2.
4-2 right now. If you told me that the Phoenix Suns were going to be 4-2 without DeAndre Ayton for, I believe, all but one of those games, I wouldn't believe you. That's crazy.
I mean, just Aaron Baines has stepped up a lot. He's looked very, very good this year. That was one of probably the best moves in the offseason that went under the radar, was Phoenix acquiring him from Boston.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting to see. This might just be a fluke hot start. Devin Booker's been great. Ricky Rubio's been a really good ad, a shockingly good ad. It's amazing what happens when you add a point guard to your NBA roster. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that if they do cool off and completely fall out of the playoff race, which a lot of people expected them to, especially with DeAndre Ayton out. Does Aaron Baines become a buyout candidate for someone like the LA Clippers, who really need a big body, especially if they're going to go up against contenders like the LA Lakers, the Sixers? Is that a possibility? And that's going to be an interesting part to look at. But talking about right now, they have a lot to like. Obviously, they're loaded with wings. Kelly Oubre's been really solid. They just added Cam Johnson, who looks like he'll be a good pick. I hesitate saying that just based on where they chose him, but he looks like a good player. Mikal Bridges is obviously a good player too. Dario Saric has been good. And yeah, they're a fun team, and they're definitely one of the most shocking storylines, period, for me, in my eyes.
I hope. I mean, it's gonna be a great match coming up. I believe it is. They play tomorrow. When do Phoenix and Philadelphia play?
They play, Monday at 9 p.m.
That's gonna be a good game to watch. I mean, and then Beadless Sixers versus Nathanless Suns, both very good teams going in there. That's gonna be a great match to see.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, we didn't even mention Devin Booker, but he's a phenomenal scorer, up there with one of the best in the league. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Suns. So let's do a quick run through of front runners for the awards. Obviously, it's been a small sample size. A lot can change between now and the end of the season. But let's just start off with, let's do Rookie of the Year. You go first. Tell me yours.
Oh, I have a legitimate candidate and a candidate that has been through 5 games. My legitimate candidate is R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett has been very good so far. I mean, you can't throw Zion in the conversation because Zion, again, hasn't played an actual NBA game yet. So, R.J. Barrett, David Fizdale has been trying out a lot of different stuff of RJ, and he's had the ball in his hands a lot, and he's been shooting very well. The one major concern of RJ Barrett is his free throw. His free throw has been abysmal, but every other aspect of his game has been very, very good for a rookie, and he has shown to be the centerpiece in New York, I think, so far, and he has a very bright career ahead of him. He's averaging roughly about 18 points per game so far. He's been shooting very well. His defense has been all right. I just think he's going to be very good, and right now, he's my Rookie of the Year candidate. My hope, through 5 games, it's Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn is putting up the most points out of any rookie. He's explosive all over the court. He can shoot lights out. He is a gritty guy. He fights for everything, gives 100% every play. I don't know if he can keep it up, but I mean, he's my rookie year through 5 games. So those are my 2. What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting. I think RJ Barrett's definitely a lock for like All NBA first team, just because the Knicks they're gonna be bad. And obviously RJ Barrett's gonna be. I'm not sure if I would go as far as the first option, but he's going to be up there in terms of offensive focal points. So I think RJ Barrett's definitely a lock for like All NBA first team, barring any major injury or setback. Kendrick Nunn, someone that is interesting. Everyone's like, wow, he's about to be the first undrafted Rookie of the Year. The reason I don't see that happening is I've thought that. Well, obviously he's sharing a team with fellow rookie Tyler Hero, who's been getting a lot of coverage, and I think that plays into it. I also think that there's also been more impressive areas, or more impressive players rather, in this debate. Matisse Thybulle. I'm not going to say Matisse Thybulle is winning Rookie of the Year. I'm just mentioning names right now. Matisse Thybulle is one. DeAndre Hunter has shown some flashes. And a big question about the Rookie of the Year race is going to be when and if Zion Williamson returns, because we've seen him through preseason and he can play. He can really, really play. And is it going to be a similar situation like what happened with Joel Embiid and Malcolm Brogdon, where he was by far the best rookie in the class, but he only plays like 30 games? Is it going to be a similar situation like that? We'll see. But in terms of Rookie of the Year nominees, Ja Morant's been really good. He's someone that I think can get hot as the season goes on. He's shown some flashes. He went head-to-head with Kyrie Irving, and actually won that game too. He's someone that I could see tearing it up and possibly winning Rookie of the Year. In terms of
One note I wanted to make on the Kendrick Nunn case, that he might not die down. I believe it was in 2017. He only had the second most points in college basketball, behind our very own MVP candidate Trae Young. And he also had the most 3-pointers made out of any player in the country.
Yeah, Kendrick Nunn is a weird case, because the thing about him, and I did research on this because I was like, okay, how is there an undrafted rookie putting up like give or take 25 points a game and he's just getting attention now? Like how does that happen? And what happened with him was he's got kind of a shady past in terms of convictions, along with other stuff. And that's why a lot of teams stayed clear of him, and he spent a year in the G League. Obviously, the Heat picked him up, and now he's tearing it up. And it wasn't ever really a case of, is he talented enough to be in the NBA? It's, is he good in terms of personality to be sharing a locker room with? Is he worth the potential PR nightmare, depending on, what he does off the court? And I found that interesting. But yeah, in terms of going back to the question at hand, Rookie of the Year, I could see Ja Morant winning it. Zion, if he returns and plays 50 games, maybe. And then a sleeper pick I'll throw in there. I mentioned Tyler Hero, but PJ Washington has been a really interesting player in the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, our guy Jack Duffy, who's down in Charlotte covering the Hornets, he is enamored with PJ Washington. I'll give you his little excerpt is what he had to say about PJ Washington. He's been phenomenal all around the season. 52% from 3. He has had 2 20-point games already this season, averaging 15.8 points per game and 7 rebounds per game while shooting about 55% from the field. He had 27 points and 7 of 11 from 3 in his debut. He had 23 points on 10 of 13 shooting against Sacramento. And then he's also had some very good defensive performances, being able to contest the ball, block shots. And he's Hornets head coach James Borrego said PJ Axon plays like he's been in the league for almost a couple of years, about 2 to 3 years. So I mean, he is very high on PJ Washington. I think that's where his candidate lies in Rookie of the Year voting.
Yeah, he's gonna be good. Charlotte finally hit on one of those late lottery picks. I feel like there's a lot to like about him. Great shooter, can switch on to multiple positions, so it's gonna be fun watching him grow. Going to let's just dive into MVP actually, because this is a tough one right now, and obviously the Sixers record wise are the best team in the NBA right now, but I feel like I can't pick an MVP on that team because who's the best player on the Sixers? Joel Embiid. He's only played 2 of those games. And if the rest of the season goes on like that, I'm not sure he plays enough games to have a serious weigh on MVP. So you look outside of that team, the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, maybe. I think they're going to cool off, though. I think you're going to look at teams like the Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers rise up, and that's when I think you'll see players like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, maybe even Paul George hopping into that discussion of MVP. Who are some names that come to your mind for MVP,
I mean,
Jack?
mine clear cut. I think right now is Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis is showing as LeBron is going further in age, and he still is very great. I think the Los Angeles Lakers are Anthony Davis's team from this point going forward. He has shown to be a monster in the post, offensively and defensively. He is unstoppable. He has been great. The offense has been running through Davis a lot in Los Angeles. And I mean, in context of the awards he got, I think it's most valuable to your team's success. Obviously, they really haven't stayed truthful to that in years past, but he really is what is holding Los Angeles together. I mean, LeBron has shown last year, I mean, given the roster is a lot different, he can't win like that on his own. I think Anthony Davis has changed a lot. Adding a top 5 NBA player is going to do that for you, but Anthony Davis having a lot better of a situation around him and being able to do what he wants to do at will and being able to put up 40 points and 20 rebounds in a game, I mean, I think he's my clear cut. Number 2, I think you're going to see, I mean, it depends how much he plays, is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard has been very good this year. He has scored at will, has been a great defender. Looks like exactly where he was when he picked up in Toronto, and he's just shown LA has been dominant when he plays. And I can't even imagine what they're gonna be like when Paul George gets back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really hard gauging something like that right now. But you just gotta look at players that have come on hot as of late. And yeah. So let's talk about most improved player. A name that immediately comes to mind for me is Malcolm Brogdon. And a lot of that has to do with just all the injuries they've had. Victor Oladipo is obviously still out, but now they're missing Miles Turner for an extended stretch. Domantas Sabonis went down with an injury. So Malcolm Brogdon has been a big focal point in their offense. His shooting percentages have obviously gone down. That's what happens when you don't have Giannis feeding you the ball 24/7. But at the same time, his averages in terms of points per game and especially assists have gone up. And I think he's definitely someone that is a serious threat to win Most Improved Player.
A person that, I mean, I don't even know if you could win it twice. It's been, I mean, one of them I would have to consider is Pascal Siakam. He has taken another incredible step up. I mean, he won it last year. I mean, I don't even know if you could win Most Improved Player twice, but I mean, he's shown to be the face of the Raptors. He's got a max contract extension. He is somebody that is shown to be very, very good. They are obviously still a playoff team with him and Lowry leading the group. He's just everything he's been doing. His touches, his right hand, everything is so great about his game. And I mean, he is shown to be the focal point of that Raptors team going forward. Again, trying to think of some other players off the top of my head that might. Luka Doncic. I mean, he was great in his rookie year, but he is shown again to be proving to be that franchise centerpiece in Dallas, dominating one of the games of the year when they played the Lakers the other night. He's been great. His scoring, his everything about him has just been fantastic so far. Another player is, I think, Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns has taken another step up.
Okay.
I mean, his fight with Embiid. I mean, he doesn't. Right, he doesn't sit very well with me, but I mean, his game has been very good so far. What are your thoughts on those three guys?
Yeah, I mean, out of those three that you mentioned, I think Karl-Anthony Towns is definitely a serious candidate if he can keeps up this consistent shooting stretch. He's been electric from 3 point range. He's without a doubt probably the best shooter, 7 feet or higher in terms of height. And he's a main reason why the Timberwolves have been this good so far with a meh roster behind him, with probably their second best player is Robert Covington, and that's a diss towards Andrew Wiggins. But that says a lot about Karl-Anthony Towns, and especially if the Timberwolves can sneak into the playoffs, I seriously think he does get consideration for that award. Let's dive into this is one of the harder awards to predict. Sixth man of the year. I'm gonna cop out with my answer as an easy answer. Lou Williams. I think the Clippers win a lot of games. It just seems like he wins it every year, but like he deserves it. He averages 20 off the bench in like 26 minutes. He's a walking bucket. Clippers are going to win a lot of games. I think he just wins it again by default.
I mean, that's he again, like he said. I mean, he's the very easy cop out answer to go towards. Another guy. I mean, he's been starting. I mean, it's a very. I mean, it depends what their roster lineup goes with the rest of the year. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if they move him to the bench,
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
he has been very good. I mean, obviously, one of the main questions is Chris Paul going to limit his touches and affect his game? While Paul has taken away some touches from him, Shai has still just been fantastic. I mean, he was. I mean, there was a reason he was a focal point in that trade for Paul George, and he's shown to be a future up and comer in this league. And he is just a great all around guard, wing type player. And he's really just been dominant, scoring about almost 20 points per game so far this year. Been effective all over the court. He's probably my prediction.
I tweeted about this the other day, where the Thunder are just the weirdest team in the NBA, just in terms of collection of talent. You got young talent, you got some players that are kind of stuck there. Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari. It's just such a weird. It's like a team that's half in rebuild mode and half trying to contend, but just
They
can't.
have the ability
Um,
to. The most interesting thing about this team is they have the ability to either liquidate or win now on the snap finger. You gotta think they have so much to work with in trade capital wise, and they have a lot to give up if they wanted to blow it up. And they are. I mean, I think they're going to go whatever way has shown to be good. I mean, if they're sticking with this and this is proven to be successful right now, they might as well stick with it. But I mean, if they can contend and give up one or two draft picks and a young player, they might just do that. It's gonna be interesting. I don't think they can win the West by any chance this year, but I mean, they're definitely gonna be a team that I don't know if I'd really want to face in the playoffs.
yeah, it's such a weird team. It's probably the weirdest team in the NBA if there's an award for that. But Shea has been probably the brightest spot for OKC fans. I remember Woj said back when they made that surprise Paul George trade, the Clippers really didn't want to include Shea Gilgeous in that trade, but that's basically what made that trade happen. That was the moving point where they were like, "Fine, we'll put him in," and he's been a phenomenal scorer, like really good scorer. I think that's where he's taken the biggest leap in his game. And I also think that OKC is using him as an offensive focal point because Chris Paul is a playmaker. He wants to be a playmaker, as we've seen in Houston. Um, but yeah, I think he's a serious threat for most improved player. Yeah. So let's wrap this up with defensive player of the year.
I mean, I
Who
think
do you got?
again the cop out answer is Kawhi Leonard or Anthony Davis. I think there's I mean they're just one. I mean again they are just so good at both sides of the ball, and they've shown to be locked down when they want to play. Again, the question is how much do these guys play? I think Anthony Davis will steal a lot. Take the chip again. Kawhi Leonard. He's obviously already we're 6 games in the year, and he's already getting rested for load management on several occasions. I mean, those are the two. Rudy
Mhm.
Gobert, again, is another guy. Jazz has been a great team this year, and that's another player comes to my mind. I mean, I feel like a lot of the same heavy candidates you've been seeing years past are coming back again this year.
Without a doubt. I think a real cop out answer would be someone like Rudy Gobert. Like I thought he deserved it his first year that he won it, but the second year just felt like, all right, media got lazy towards the end of their ballot, and just put him on it. Yeah, those are all great answers. I think a team like the Sixers is a team that has a lot of defensive player of the year candidates. Ben Simmons, when he's engaged, is a phenomenal defender. Joel Embiid, again, the question will rest on how many games does he play. Matisse Thybulle, I'm not going to put him in the defensive player of the year discussion, but I think there's a chance that he makes an all defensive team, especially if he keeps up his steal numbers.
I think
The name that comes to mind for me for defensive player of the year was Giannis, who was in the discussion for it last year, but I feel like him winning MVP really hurt his chances at winning defensive player of the year because they felt like they can't give it to the same player, you know. And I
mhm.
think this year he gets a lot more consideration for it. You know, he averages a high amount of blocks, a high amount of steals, and that's someone that I can really see winning it.
The thing with the Sixers, I think it's a double-edged sword. Is yeah, they have a lot of defensive player of the year candidates, but I mean, you gotta think you're gonna devil advocate any person you put up for there. And if you put Ben Simmons, you're like, well, he's also surrounded by elite defenders, which also makes him look a lot better compared to a guy like Giannis, he has okay defenders around him, but there's nobody on his level on that court. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. There hasn't really been a front runner with defensive player of the year, at least in my mind yet. Um, I think if you told me to give you a vote, I would probably say Giannis just based off of right now. But you know, we'll see what happens with that. So I believe that's all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in to this. I'm excited to get this started, especially with Jack. He's a great writer. You can find both of our works at the Painted Lines. We're both writers there. We both do NBA work, Sixers work. Jack does a lot of Eagles stuff too. Once again, I'm Harrison Grimm. You can find me at Twitter at Harrison E. Grimm. You can find Jack's Twitter at Jack Connell. Connell spelled CONNELLTPL. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you for our next episode.
See you guys.